She looked me dead in the eye and said, "I slept with someone else last night," expecting me to fall apart. Instead, I raised my glass and whispered, "Congratulations." Everyone always thought I was the soft one in our marriage. Quiet, patient, too forgiving. But that night, as my wife waited for the explosion she thought she deserved, she had no idea I'd already uncovered everything. And trust me, I wasn't done yet. Before I tell you what happened, hit that like button, subscribe, and drop a comment. It keeps stories like this alive. The evening had been ordinary in that dull, comforting way routines tend to be. I came home from another long shift at the engineering firm. The city lights flickered through the rain outside our windows. Our apartment smelled faintly of rosemary chicken. She always cooked when she wanted to look innocent. I loosened my tie, kicked off my shoes, and stepped inside the living room where she sat on the couch. Legs crossed, arms folded, face carved from stone. Something in her posture made the air feel heavier. 7 years of marriage will teach you to hear the words someone hasn't spoken yet. "Mark," she said, her voice flat, rehearsed. "Sit down. We need to talk." I lowered myself into the chair across from her. The leather was cold, almost as cold as the silence stretching between us. Rain tapped the windows like impatient fingers. I felt the hollow, maybe, but calm. That was the part she didn't expect. She leaned forward, eyes narrowed, searching my face like she was hunting for fear. "I slept with someone last night." The words floated across the room, sharp enough to cut, but they landed on me like I had been waiting for them. Because I had, for days. She waited for the meltdown, for broken glass, for shouting, anything to make her feel powerful. Instead, I reached for the small bottle of whiskey on the side table, poured 2 fingers, and took a slow sip. "Congrats," I said, steady as a surgeon. Her expression cracked like thin ice under a heavy boot. "That's it?" she snapped. "That's all you have to say?" I looked at her over the rim of my glass, swirling the amber liquid the way my father used to when he was deciding whether to start a fight or walk away. "What do you want me to say, Jenna? You made your choice." She shot to her feet, hands shaking with something that wasn't guilt. No, this was frustration. Real, ugly frustration. "You don't even care, do you? 7 years, and you don't even care." Oh, I cared. I cared enough that the truth had gutted me 5 days ago when her winter coat slipped off its hanger and a hotel receipt fell out. The Grand Meridian, room 712. One night, 2 guests. Same night she said she was at a work dinner. I cared when I saw her phone light up at 2 in the morning, screen flashing with a name I didn't recognize, Ryan, and I watched her silence it with a guilty flick of her wrist. I cared when she crawled into bed smelling like cologne I'd never worn, and later, after she fell asleep, I'd unlocked her phone. Our anniversary was still her passcode, which felt like its own insult. I scrolled through months of messages, each one a little dagger. Flirty jokes, secret plans, pictures she'd never taken for me, and descriptions of our marriage that made me feel like a stranger in my own home. She wrote things like our life was predictable, that our intimacy felt like checking a box. She told him she fantasized about him while lying next to me. So yes, I cared. And then something inside me simply switched off. But I didn't let any of that show. Not tonight. Not yet. Jenna paced the room like a trapped animal, her breath quickening. She wanted chaos. She wanted tears. She wanted a dramatic scene she could twist later into some story about how I drove her away, how I was too emotional, too fragile. But there I sat, calm, silent, unmoved. Because 5 days of knowing the truth had changed me. 5 days of building a plan piece by piece while pretending everything was normal. 5 days of hearing her say, "I love you," with the same mouth she used to whisper to him. "Say something," she demanded again. I stood slowly, setting the empty glass on the table. What do you want me to say, Jenna? That I'm shocked? Hurt? Broken? You forfeited the right to see any of that. Her face twisted, confusion bleeding into panic. Why are you acting like this? Acting. Funny word. I wasn't acting. I was done acting. I walked past her toward the bedroom, ignoring the tremor in her voice as she called after me. I wasn't grabbing evidence or proving anything. Not yet. I just needed space, air, silence. My hand brushed the doorframe as I paused, feeling the weight of the moment but refusing to let it crush me. Behind me, she said, "You're supposed to fight for me." I closed my eyes for a brief second. "I already did," I said. "You just didn't notice." I didn't go far, just into the hallway outside our bedroom, leaning against the wall as if it were the only thing holding me upright. The quiet buzz of the city seeped through the bricks, a muffled reminder that life kept moving even when yours cracked open. I could hear Jenna pacing behind me, her frustration swelling into something nearly frantic. She wasn't used to losing control. Not of me, not of anything. And the more silent I became, the harder she pushed, like my calm was a threat she couldn't understand. I walked back into the living room, and she stopped mid-stride, eyes wide, waiting for me to break. But instead of breaking, I studied her the way a surgeon studies an X-ray, slowly, clinically, noting every fracture she thought I couldn't see. Rain streaked the windows again, faint, steady, as if the sky couldn't decide whether to cry or just clean itself. She stood by the couch, arms wrapped around herself, suddenly much smaller than she'd been minutes ago. It was strange how truth does that, shrinks a person from their imagined height. "Mark, talk to me," she said, voice cracking. "Please, don't just shut down." I tilted my head, watching her as a memory flashed through me. 5 days earlier, sitting alone at our kitchen table at 3 a.m., staring at the hotel receipt like it was an obituary. I'd brewed coffee I couldn't drink, read her messages 3 times, then sat in the dark until sunrise because sleep felt like something I no longer deserved. "I'm not shutting down," I said quietly. "I'm seeing clearly for the first time in a long time." She blinked rapidly, like the sentence had slapped her. But she pushed forward anyway, reaching for a new angle. "It was a mistake, Mark. I wasn't thinking. We can work through this. Couples survive worse. Maybe some couples did. But those couples probably didn't have weeks of messages where one partner mocked the other's dreams, belittled their life together, and fantasized about a different bed while lying in the same one." I walked toward the window, hands slipping into my pockets as I studied the shimmering lights far below. The city felt different now, less like home, more like escape. "Mistake," I repeated. Strange word for something with hotel reservations, dinner receipts, and months of secret messages. She flinched, her breath catching. You saw something?" I didn't turn to face her. "Enough." The word landed between us like a steel beam. She hesitated, then stepped closer, her voice trembling. "Mark, I'm begging you. Tell me what you want. I can fix this." Fix. Another strange word. I wanted to laugh, but the sound lodged somewhere deep inside me. Because 4 nights ago, after discovering everything, I'd watched her sleep, peacefully, blissfully unaware. I'd studied the curve of her shoulder, the rise and fall of her breathing, the way she murmured and shifted beneath the covers. I'd realized then that love doesn't protect you from betrayal. Sometimes it only blinds you long enough to let it happen. I finally turned around. Jenna froze. "What I want," I said, "is the truth, not the version you rehearsed in your head. Not the one that makes you the accidental victim. The real truth." She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. And then the flood came. Half-truths, Excuses, phrases like, I felt lonely, I was confused, it didn't mean anything, I didn't think you'd ever find out. She kept talking, trying to throw words over the widening chasm between us. But every sentence only reminded me of the messages she'd sent him where she called our life predictable, where she said I lacked passion, where she told him she imagined him while she touched me. Stop, I said finally, lifting a hand. She fell silent, chest rising and falling quickly. I stepped closer, not out of affection, but because distance felt dishonest now. You want to know what hurts the most? I asked. It's not the cheating. Her breath hitched. Then what? It's that you let me build a life with someone who checked out long before she told me the truth. She pressed a hand to her mouth as if she could push the tears back in. But tears weren't going to fix anything. Not tonight. She wiped her face quickly and whispered, Tell me how to make this right. I studied her for a long moment. Not the woman I married. The woman standing here now, haunted, trembling, desperate to rewrite what she'd already written. You can't, I said. Not tonight. Not with words. Something inside her shattered then. I could see it happen, the collapse. She sank onto the couch, fingers gripping the cushion like she needed something solid to hold on to. But I didn't sit. I stayed standing, not out of pride, but because the ground felt too unsteady to share with her. Silence draped over the room like heavy velvet, deep, suffocating. Thunder rumbled far off in the distance, low and tired. And then my phone buzzed. Jenna stiffened instantly. One small vibration, and the color drained from her face. Because she knew. She knew that someone else, somewhere, was involved in this moment. She whispered, Who is that? I looked down at the screen, unreadable, and I didn't answer. The silence itself was an answer she couldn't bear. She rose again, fear clawing across her expression. Mark, what's going on? I met her eyes, my voice steady, measured, unshaking in a way she'd never heard before. You wanted a conversation, I said. Now we're going to have one. That was the moment the balance shifted. Not loudly, not violently, just a slow, deliberate turning of the tide. And she felt it, deeply. The air felt different, charged, buzzing the way the atmosphere changes right before lightning strikes. Jenna watched me with wide, unsteady eyes, as if she sensed something approaching but couldn't tell from which direction. My phone buzzed again, vibrating against my palm. I didn't flinch. I didn't look away, and that terrified her more than anything else had. Mark, she whispered, please, tell me what's happening. I slipped the phone into my pocket, slow, deliberate, and walked toward the dining table where a stack of documents lay inside a plain, unmarked envelope. I had set it there earlier, hours before she ever confessed, because some part of me knew this night would fracture open sooner or later. I placed a hand on the envelope but didn't pick it up yet. Instead, I studied her. The woman trembling before me wasn't the same woman who had once danced barefoot in our kitchen at midnight, laughing as we burned pancakes and drank cheap wine. That woman had vanished long before the affair ever happened. I just hadn't wanted to see it. You asked for honesty, I said quietly. I think it's time you had some. Jenna swallowed hard. Mark, I told you everything. I told you I made a mistake. No, I interrupted. You told me the version of the story that hurts you the least. Her lips parted, but the words refused to come out. I opened the envelope and spread its contents across the table like a dealer laying out cards in a high-stakes game. And in a way, that's exactly what it was. Her breath caught the moment she saw the first page. Not the last, the first. A printed screenshot of her messages. Lines of flirtation, desire, mockery, all written in her own hand. She didn't touch it. She didn't dare. I slid the next page forward. A hotel receipt with her signature. Then another. A credit card statement with highlighted charges, dinners, drinks, reservation fees. Some of them charged to our joint account. Her knees buckled slightly, and she gripped the back of the chair as if gravity had suddenly doubled. How did you get all this?" she whispered. "It wasn't hard," I said. "You weren't careful." Her eyes flicked toward the envelope again, dread growing inside them like dark water rising in a hallway. I reached in and pulled out the last set of pages, photographs, time-stamped, clear, undeniable. A man's arm around her waist as they entered a hotel, the two of them laughing on the sidewalk. And then, through sheer curtains, a silhouette of two bodies tangled in ways that shattered any remaining doubt. Jenna sank into the chair, her mouth trembling. "Mark, I didn't know. I didn't think that I'd find out," I finished. She nodded weakly, then shook her head, then buried her face in her hands. Tears came, real ones or survival ones, I couldn't tell anymore. I sat across from her, folding my hands calmly. It was strange how quiet I felt inside, like all the noise had finally drained out of me. "Why didn't you confront me sooner?" she choked out. "Why pretend everything was fine?" I exhaled slowly. "Because I needed time to understand what I felt, to understand who you'd become, and to understand what I needed to do next." She lifted her head, mascara streaking down her cheeks. What do you need, Mark? Tell me. I'll do anything." I studied her for a long moment, not with anger, not with hatred, but with a clarity I hadn't had in years. "I need my life back." She froze, completely. No breath, no blink, just still. I reached into the envelope one final time and pulled out the document at the bottom, a set of signatures, crisp and final. I placed it gently on the table and tapped the top page. Her eyes widened as she read the heading. Divorce agreement. The room turned so still I could hear the rain easing outside, the gutter dripping a slow rhythm that felt almost ceremonial. Jenna shook her head violently. "No, no, no, Mark, please. You can't, don't do this. Not us. Not like this." I pushed the papers toward her. "You ended us before I ever held those documents. I'm just acknowledging what already happened." She scrabbled at the pages with trembling fingers, her words spilling out like broken glass. Cutting, desperate, frantic. "Mark, I'll leave him. I'll go to therapy. I'll do anything. Please, you can't throw away 7 years. You threw them away," I said softly. "I'm just choosing not to live in the ruins." She reached for my hand, and for a split second, instinct almost made me let her. But then I remembered. Every message, every lie, every night she climbed into our bed smelling like a life I wasn't part of. I pulled my hand back. Her face crumpled as if the gesture itself had cracked something in her chest. "Sign them," I said. "We'll divide things fairly. You'll have time to figure out what comes next." She covered her face again, shoulders shaking, a sound escaping her that barely resembled a person. But I stayed quiet, steady, present in a way I hadn't been for years. After a long stretch of hollow silence, she whispered through her fingers, "Where will you go?" "Somewhere peaceful," I answered. "Somewhere I can breathe again." She lowered her hands, eyes red, voice small. "Mark, please don't leave me like this." I stood, picking up the packed overnight bag I'd hidden earlier in the hall closet. "I'm not leaving you," I said. "You already left me. I'm just walking out the door you opened." Her tears fell harder, faster. But tears were no longer my responsibility. I walked to the front door, paused, and looked back at the shattered scene behind me. Papers scattered, memories fading. a woman crumbling under the weight of her own decisions. I didn't feel triumph. I didn't feel revenge. I felt release, a quiet, steady release that filled my lungs with something close to freedom. I opened the door. Jenna whispered, "I'm sorry." Whether she meant it for me or for herself, I never learned. I stepped into the hallway, closed the door gently behind me, and as I walked toward the elevator, I realized something unmistakably true. Silence, real, deliberate silence, sometimes speaks louder than rage ever could. If you want more stories like this, make sure you subscribe, leave a like, and drop a comment.